Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and today we're posing a simple but important question. Are original LEGO themes dying? Once a staple of LEGO's brand with the likes of Adventurers and Castle and Space and Pirates, and in more recent years Power Miners, Atlantis, Pharaoh's Quest, Alien Conquest, and so much more, original LEGO themes used to be incredibly common, taking up basically 90% of LEGO's portfolio, with maybe a couple of licensed themes here and there, with a heavy focus on Star Wars and Harry Potter. But in recent years, that ratio seems to have kinda flipped. More and more themes are focused on pre-existing licenses. Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Sonic the Hedgehog, LEGO Fortnite, LEGO Disney, you name it, licenses are everywhere when it comes to LEGO nowadays. And if you look at the original story-based LEGO themes, we have Ninjago, we have City, which I don't even know if you would count as a story-based theme. We have Friends, which is kind of in the same boat as City. Monkey Kid, which is pretty much at this point just a regional type of thing where it's only focused on the Asian market. And then finally, LEGO Dreams, the latest attempt at an original LEGO theme that honestly doesn't seem to be doing too well. And recent rumors about Dreams wrapping up in 2025 are actually what spurred the creation of this video. So what exactly happened along the way that made LEGO go from putting out so many original action-adventure themes like Bionicle, Exoforce, you name it, to pretty much just focusing on one or two, with most of their product portfolio now geared towards adult-oriented sets or sets based off of pre-existing licenses? We're gonna dive deep into all of that and more as we explore some major categories of where did LEGO original themes go, why some of them fail, why LEGO might have taken some of the wrong lessons from the failures of some of these recent themes, and what can LEGO do and what lessons can they take for the future to continue to put out more creative ideas and their own original IPs. Let's jump into this right now. I want to start off this video with a bit of an overview, and obviously this was spurred on by recent news about what might be happening to some of the original themes coming out this year, particularly LEGO Monkey Kid and Dreams. But to address that, we have to step back and take a look at first a history of original LEGO themes and how they really defined the company in some of its earlier days, the so-called Big Bang strategy that LEGO employed in the mid-2010s, the introduction of the adult LEGO audience, first coming in with the influx of the LEGO Movie in 2014 and much bigger in 2020 after a ton of adults went home and had nothing to do, and finally talking about how important storytelling is when it comes to crafting an original LEGO theme, or really any LEGO theme in general, and why maybe a lack of good storytelling might be behind the decline of some original LEGO themes, but not all of them. But first, let's jump into why exactly I figured now was the right time to make this video. I feel like the writing has been on the wall for a while for certain original LEGO themes, and I was sitting down the other day and realizing that if some original LEGO themes were to have their final years this year in 2025, we might be stuck with only 3 original themes by the end of the year: Ninjago, City, and Friends, and that's really if you count City and Friends as original story-based LEGO themes, which honestly I kind of go back and forth on. Ninjago is going to be the last bastion of original story-based action-adventure themes, back in the day when we used to have dozens and dozens of these themes even in the same year. And because of that, I wanted to step back and take a look at how many original themes did we used to get versus licensed themes, and try and figure out when this actually changed. Let's go in 5-year increments. Taking a look all the way back to the year 2000, we had around 22 LEGO themes, and out of those, about 10 of those were original story-based action themes. We had Robo Riders or Racers, which had a story of its own, or Adventurers, you know, the classics that came out in around 2000. Back then, there were literally only 2 licensed themes currently running: Star Wars and Mickey Mouse, and I don't even know if you would count Mickey Mouse because it basically only had a single set. By 2005, when there were around 28 themes, about 12 of those were original, so the number actually went up, from Dino Attack to Vikings to Bionicle and even Racers and Clickets, and of course we had a few more licensed themes by then, 3 to be specific. Batman, Harry Potter, and Star Wars, and nowadays I consider these 3 licensed themes to really be the core of LEGO licensed themes today, themes that probably will stick around pretty much forever. Even though some of them took hiatuses here and there, I would consider the genres of superheroes in general, whether it's Marvel or DC, Star Wars, which is never going away, and LEGO Harry Potter to be some of the most prevalent and prominent LEGO themes, and it's interesting seeing them begin around 2005 and just continue to stretch out beyond there. By 2010, 5 years later, we had around 31 themes, 12 of which were original, which was still really cool to see. And this is kind of what I would consider to be one of the golden eras of original LEGO themes. We had stuff like Power Miners, Space Police 3, Bionicle, and Hero Factory in the same year. Even LEGO Universe was launching and giving us more original concepts and stories. Atlantis was making a big splash, literally speaking. There was a lot to love in 2010, and it kind of felt like LEGO original themes were more popular than ever. If you look at the licensed themes coming out around this time, there were around 5. Harry Potter, Star Wars, Ben 10, Prince of Persia, and Toy Story, with the superheroes line on hiatus until 2012. Ben 10 and Prince of Persia were pretty short-lived, and while Toy Story did stretch a little longer, it was very much not a big focus of what LEGO was doing. Here, the main focus of LEGO's marketing drive were the original themes they were putting out, and it was a great time to be a fan of original LEGO themes because they kept on coming up with these new concepts. Just 1 year later in 2011, we'd be introduced to stuff like Alien Conquest, a few years after that, Galaxy Squad, and we would continue to explore the world of Atlantis. But everything really changed around 2011, when LEGO decided to actually commit to telling a serious, long-form story on Cartoon Network for Ninjago in 2011. And we'll get back to that when we get to part 4 of this video about storytelling, so just keep that thought in mind for now. Flash forward 5 years later, in 2015 we had around 11 original themes, including the return of both Pirates and Bionicle, Ninjago going as strong as ever, Legends of Chima wrapping up, and we'll talk a lot more about that in the next section about Big Bang themes, but then we also had a lot more licensed themes, basically around 9 licensed themes. Marvel, DC, Simpsons, Jurassic World, Scooby-Doo, Speed Champions, which was basically putting out a ton of licensed vehicles, Disney, Star Wars, and all of the licenses that came alongside Dimensions, including Lord of the Rings and so on and so forth. 2015 was a really interesting year for LEGO. It was the year after the LEGO Movie, where LEGO was doing so well and flying off the shelves that LEGO basically stopped having to market their sets. In fact, one of the previous marketing directors for LEGO stated that this was basically a freeze on marketing. LEGO sets were selling so well they couldn't keep up with the demand, so they literally stopped marketing and spending on marketing budget when it came to a lot of their original LEGO themes, and even some of the licensed ones. And I feel like 2015 was a big turning point, where LEGO was still trying to explore some of their original concepts, focusing on original themes, but they were starting to realize just the sheer power of their licensed brand deals. And especially with Dimensions bringing in literally dozens of licenses for the brand, many of which they have revisited and still continue to revisit even to this day, this was kind of a turning point for LEGO. 5 years later in 2020, and we were pared down to around 6 original themes, less than half of what we were used to. Ninjago, Monkey Kid, Dots, City, Hidden Side, and Friends. By 2020, we also had around 10 licensed themes: DC, Despicable Me, Harry Potter, Jurassic World, Marvel, Minecraft, Speed Champions, Super Mario, Star Wars, and Trolls. And this isn't even counting all of the licensed stuff we would get through Ideas, or Technic licensed cars, and LEGO Icons, which was making a big appearance right around the time when LEGO was starting to get very popular around adults. Now, we are in 2025. There are over 19 licensed themes in 2025 and counting. This is not even counting some of the rumored themes that are purportedly coming in the end of this year, like Star Trek and LEGO One Piece. Just to name a few of these licensed themes, we have Wicked, Super Mario, Star Wars, Speed Champions, Sonic the Hedgehog, Minecraft, Marvel, Jurassic World, Horizon, Harry Potter, Fortnite, Disney, DC Comics superheroes, and literally so much more. From Bluey to Animal Crossing, 2025 has nearly 20 licensed themes. But you might be wondering, how many original themes are we getting in this year? And honestly, we might be down to 3 by the end of the year. Right now, at the start of the year, we have Ninjago, Monkey Kid, City, Friends, and Dreams. And unfortunately, 2 out of those 5 themes are looking to be on their way out, and that brings us to current rumors. It's no secret that LEGO Dreams is performing not quite as well as LEGO may have hoped. You see, there are a lot of issues with LEGO Dreams, and we're going to talk a lot more about that when we get to our point about storytelling in part 4, but suffice to say that LEGO Dreams is not really hitting the wave of popularity that maybe LEGO hoped it would. They had a whole TV show which is very accessible. We can find it on YouTube and Netflix. They have a whole cast of characters, a ton of different sets, but it just hasn't seemed to hit the same point that Ninjago had hit even just on its first year. And recent rumors are stating that one of the largest LEGO Dream sets, which was supposed to come out this summer about the Game Island Tower, has been cancelled. And this is not really a big surprise when it comes to original LEGO themes winding down. We've seen this before. We have played these games before. Original themes LEGO has a lot of hope in, and they put a lot of budget and funding into on their first couple of years, but by the 3rd year, maybe things are winding down, and if they're really not performing well, LEGO might just start canceling the biggest and most expensive sets that they already had ready to go for those themes, because putting them out on shelves might cost more money than it's worth. And it's pretty clear that if this set is indeed cancelled, which is pretty accurate, a lot of the reliable rumors have been saying this set is cancelled, Dreams is probably on its way out after 2025. I'd be open to be pleasantly surprised, but the situation is what it is. Now, Monkey Kid is in a pretty strange situation. It's lasted longer than a typical 3-year run for original LEGO themes, but it does seem to be really winding down this particular year, and for reasons that are completely different than LEGO Dreams. In fact, that's really what I wanted to focus on this video. What on earth has LEGO been doing with marketing their original LEGO themes? Monkey Kid exists in a bit of a weird space for LEGO, and Monkey Kid was actually never supposed to release outside of China. The Journey to the East documentary, which is a really cool documentary, you can just find it online, and I highly recommend that anybody who's interested in the development of LEGO themes just go and watch that documentary, is super interesting, and it provides a fascinating insight into the development of LEGO Monkey Kid, where initially they proposed it as a China and Asia only theme. It was never supposed to release in the US, and they trialed this by putting out some Lunar New Year sets exclusive to Asia right around 2019, which was a year before LEGO Monkey Kid. Now, fan backlash to those 2019 sets, which came out around December, was pretty severe. Almost everybody, especially in the online LEGO community, were furious that such amazing sets were being relegated to only the Asia market, and the backlash was so severe that LEGO had to come out and put out a statement saying they would never again put out sets that are exclusive to particular regions unless they were basically for like a LEGO House exclusive or maybe a Comic-Con exclusive. Other than that, they promised to never make certain sets limited regional exclusives. LEGO would later flex this statement a little bit, and this was very obvious when certain themes, like other original themes, weren't doing well. For instance, Video had its final wave of minifigures exclusive to Europe and Asia and never released in the US, but for by and large, LEGO did stick to this promise. The thing is, this was right on the heels of their big announcement of LEGO Monkey Kid, which was supposed to be a theme made specifically for the Asian market. Almost begrudgingly, LEGO was kind of forced to release it in the US and in Europe, and because of that, they weren't necessarily really prepared to even market it in these places. For instance, it was always a Lego.com and LEGO Store exclusive, meaning that at least here in the US, you couldn't go to a Target or a Walmart and just go ahead and purchase these sets. There was no way to get them unless you had a LEGO store nearby or bought them directly from Lego.com. The other issue was the cartoon. Obviously, LEGO had secured rights to stream and broadcast the cartoon everywhere around Asia, but they weren't prepared to launch the cartoon in the US, and because of that, there wasn't really an easy way to see Monkey Kid, and this is a problem that has plagued the show up until its current run today. Sitting here right now, I can't really tell you where you can watch Monkey Kid. I believe for a while it was on Peacock, I think it was like on Tubi for a little bit, and it might still be on there. It certainly never was on Netflix, at least here in the US. LEGO never uploaded the episodes to their YouTube channel like they normally do with some of their other shows like Ninjago and Dreams, presumably because the distribution rights of the show were already agreed upon and mapped out to align with Asian distributors. And because of that, it is nearly impossible to watch LEGO Monkey Kid unless you sail the high seas, and even pirating it isn't that easy, because a lot of the times people post them on Google Drives and those get shut down, and then you have to go to like Vimeo to watch like a poor quality version of the episodes. It's not fun. Add to the fact that the episodes always came out earlier in Chinese without subtitles made this show nearly impossible to watch and get into. The average kid, especially the average kid living outside of Asia, is going to have a really hard time watching this show. And you know what's really unfortunate? This show is really, really good. It might be one of the best pieces of LEGO media ever made. In a lot of ways, it even rivals and exceeds Ninjago. The cast is stacked. Jack D'Sena plays the main character Monkey Kid, who you may know as playing Sokka in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Sean Shamel plays the Monkey King, who, if you don't know his name, is famous in the anime world for playing basically the same role in Dragon Ball. Steve Blum played the Demon Bull King, who you might know from Star Wars Rebels as Garazeb Aurelios. This is a stacked cast, and the animation is incredible. It was one of LEGO's first forays into 2D animation, animated by Flying Bark Productions, which is one of the best animation studios that you can find out there today. They animated that incredible Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show, they animated the Moon Girl show for Disney Plus, and every single thing they put out is straight fire. The fight scenes are incredible, the characters are so expressive, there is so much life and love and detail put into this show, and it's such a shame because nobody knows it exists. Outside of a small but active fanbase on Twitter, I do not hear anybody talking about this show, and it's really sad because the show is amazing. I even put out an in-depth analysis video on why I think the show is one of LEGO's best, urging people to watch it, and it was like one of my worst performing videos ever. People do not care about this show, and that makes me very sad, because I think it is a true hidden gem. LEGO often stumbles with storytelling, especially when it comes to original LEGO themes, and a lot of the times original themes fail because the story isn't gripping enough. It isn't quite good, it's rough, the characters are hard to get into, it's repetitive, but Monkey Kid somehow defies all of that, and yet is still completely shafted because LEGO had no plan to launch it outside of Asia and was basically unwilling to promote it at all. In fact, here in the US, after the start of the theme's second year, they decided to pull it entirely from physical LEGO stores, meaning that the only way to get Monkey Kid sets in the US is by ordering them online. Otherwise, if you walk into a LEGO store, you won't discover it. And a lot of kids discover new LEGO themes by just going into the store, Target, Walmart, or the LEGO store, and just finding sets on the shelves that look cool, which then leads them to seek out the story and get into it. But sadly, Monkey Kid doesn't have that. And because of that, despite the fact the theme seems to be doing really well in China, they have in-person events, there's a Monkey Kid section of Legoland opening in China, which is part of a new theme park they're opening that I am so excited to go visit and do a video on that I really hope doesn't get cancelled. But outside of Asia, where the theme is doing pretty good, Monkey Kid barely exists outside of there. And because of that, it seems like LEGO is kind of winding it down. Now, obviously, there aren't any concrete rumors or confirmations about this, but if you look at the 2 new sets they released for the first wave, which may I add is also a really small new wave, for the first time, a lot of the figures lack leg printing, they're using generic minifigure faces, and overall there just seems to be kind of a lack of attention to detail in the latest 2 sets that a lot of original LEGO Monkey Kid sets used to pride themselves on. When Monkey Kid launched, the sets were some of the best that LEGO put out. They were revolutionizing the way that LEGO built giant scale mechs and characters and buildable figures, and LEGO Monkey Kid seemed to be like one of the best LEGO themes ever. But over time, Monkey Kid slowly began to kind of fall behind other original LEGO themes like Ninjago, which recently put out, in my opinion, the best LEGO mech ever and the best LEGO dragon ever, putting a lot of what some of the best LEGO Monkey Kid sets were doing almost to shame. And if you take a look at this latest wave, where one set is basically a clone of another set that we got this time last year, which is absolutely bizarre, and the fact that we celebrated the 5-year anniversary at the beginning of last year, which again, they're going by the Chinese numerology of anniversaries, so they're celebrating it at the start of the year instead of at the end of it. All that's to say is that LEGO Monkey Kid seems like it's on its way out. Even the animation studio has switched over from Flying Bark and instead is being currently animated by WildBrain, the studio that animates LEGO Ninjago, and is doing an amazing job on Ninjago, but obviously isn't really that well versed in 2D animation, meaning that the animation quality of the latest season, despite the story being incredible, is honestly really not all that good. Altogether, it would honestly just be such a shame if Monkey Kid were to end here. The way the story was set up for this theme is that they had a really interesting 3-year arc, where 2020, 2021, and 2022 all built up to this main villain of the Lady Bone Demon pulling the strings in the background, and it looks like that's exactly what they were setting up starting 2023, another 3-year arc, where you have a main villain pulling the strings behind all of the other secondary villains that we met through 2023 and 2024. Now, we ended on a massive cliffhanger, and basically the story can be resolved in 2025. They do have a finish line, we just need to have a final season, and honestly, I would be pretty happy. Monkey Kid is one of the best LEGO themes, and while I obviously would love for it to last as long as possible, it was almost set up to fail from the beginning because LEGO never marketed it or even tried to remotely sell it outside of Asia, and because of that, it looks like the theme is slowly coming to an end, which is very sad. The other theme to talk about though for 2025 that might be having its final year now is LEGO Dreams. And Dreams is in a very different spot than Monkey Kid. In fact, it is almost a completely different story. LEGO Dreams launched as LEGO's brand new big original theme, where they spared no expense with Dreams. They launched it with a ton of LEGO sets ranging from small to large. They had on the boxes, on every single box, Watch TV Show Online with a QR code that you could scan showing you how to watch the show. They even made the show so easily accessible you could literally watch it on the LEGO YouTube channel and on Netflix, so you had multiple ways to consume the content. Everything was set up for success. The characters were unique and vibrant, the villains looked amazing, so much budget went into new pieces and recolors and reimagining the sets as almost 2-in-1 or 3-in-1 builds. There was only one issue. The show wasn't very good. And there really isn't any way to sugarcoat this. I actually put out a video kind of ripping into the LEGO Dreams TV show a while back that I actually took down from YouTube. I think that I was maybe a little bit too critical on it, and honestly, looking back, I probably could have been a little bit nicer to the show. I basically was just ripping apart every single aspect of it. But you know what? You're coming to the Duckbricks channel for honest LEGO takes, and I'm gonna be completely honest. I do not think the show is good. Now, granted, I might not be the target audience. Obviously, it's meant for kids, but so is Ninjago, and so is Monkey Kid, and I think those two shows are incredible, and we'll talk a lot more about Ninjago later on. LEGO Dreams, on the other hand, is honestly just not that interesting. The characters are pretty flat and kind of one note, and despite the show having 20 episode seasons with 22 minutes per episode, not much really happens in each episode. It's really hard to describe the experience of watching a LEGO Dreams episode because it all kind of feels the same. Sure, there's a beginning, middle, and an end, and each episode does try to introduce new things for the characters to deal with and focus on, but at the end of the day, the character archetypes are very bland, and there's very little character progression or development. Mateo, the main character of LEGO Dreams, started the show pretty much the same way that he is currently at it, 2 seasons in, and that's not a good sign. One thing I love about shows especially like Monkey Kid is that you can see how the past events of even trauma and maturity and reflection actually affect our heroes. MK, or Monkey Kid, at the current state in the show is a very, very different character than he was when he began the show. When he began, he was pretty naive, he was full of energy, he was always seeking out adventure, and maybe he was a little bit too reckless. He was impulsive, and he didn't really recognize the value of what it means to be a hero. But over the course of the show, he's taught some valuable lessons. The #1 main theme of Season 3 of Monkey Kid that they were building up towards is that the pursuit of a perfect world only leads to pain, and all of his efforts to make the world better only cause more suffering. And that's something that really affects him going into Season 4, and causes him to act very differently as a protagonist in Season 4. But then, he goes too far in the other direction. He gives too much power to this darkness within himself and starts to realize that the main antagonist of Season 4 is really just kind of somebody who he could become if he doesn't get in control of his anger and his obsession to make the world better, because that obsession can lead to people doing very bad things. He's such an interesting character to dive into, and the character development that Monkey Kid goes through is just a little smidgen of what every single character in the show actually goes through. Every single one, aside from Baby Sandy, evolves a lot, and even the side characters feel like they are real people who grow and mature and reflect on things they've done. Dreams, on the other hand, just basically focuses on the most simple character archetypes and doesn't really expand upon them. I'm not really excited to see what Mateo or Izzy or Logan or Cooper are doing because they just don't really have any maturity. There isn't really a forward progression. Even the villains are incredibly one-note. Season 1's Nightmare King has a motivation that in any other show could be really, really interesting. He's a creation of the dream world who wants to be real and he wants to go to the real world. I think that is genuinely a really strong motivation for a villain. There's a lot of meat there in a character just wanting to exist outside of dreams. But the thing is, this motivation is never really expounded upon outside of muhahaha, I'm evil and I want to take over the outside world. Yes, part of his evil plan is making himself have a real body so he can, like, terrorize the people of the outside world, but it's not driven from a want to be real, it's driven from a want to rule the world, which is one of the most boring villain motivations there is. The Neverwitch, on the other hand, the villain for Season 2, has her motivation focusing on bringing the dream world back to its base state, and feeling like it's gotten too complicated or too messy, and wanting things to just be simple, which again is a pretty interesting motivation. Like, when I'm explaining the villain motivations to you on paper, it sounds like there's a lot of character to explore there. Why does she want things to be simple in the way they were? Why does she want to revert the dream world back to its original base state before creativity so-called infected it? But here's the thing. Even after 20 episodes that are 22 minutes long in Season 2, I don't really know why the Neverwitch wanted to do this. We get a little bit of flashback showing that, like, she was happier before with one of her friends back when things were simple and her friend wanted to explore what else the dream world had to offer and she didn't want her friend to leave. But that's basically it. There's not really anything else to it, and I kind of wish that this was just a much more interesting motivation that could have been explored so much more. And I think this is emblematic of a lot of LEGO Dreams as a whole. Good ideas, interesting characters, and good motivations that aren't really explored to their fullest, and it just feels like a lot of wasted potential. Overall, just talking to a lot of LEGO fans, I don't know who are really fans of LEGO Dreams. Like, I'm sure somebody in the comments is gonna say it's their favorite LEGO show and they're a big fan of it, but by and large, I see obviously a lot of Ninjago fans, There's a decently sized LEGO Monkey Kid fandom, at least the 10 people that figured out how to watch the bloody show, but I don't see anybody talking about LEGO Dreams. Even when episodes are dropping, barely anybody is even talking about them at all, other than, oh, that's interesting how they mentioned Bionicle by name in that one episode, or how they talk about Lord of the Rings in a different episode, or how they literally watched Ninjago in one episode, or, oh, that was funny when one of the characters said, okay, boomer. Like, I don't know, I just feel like LEGO Dreams just doesn't have the staying impact of a lot of other LEGO themes, and because of that, they just haven't been able to carve out its own niche and might be winding down by the end of the year, leaving us with, once again, City, Friends, and Ninjago. Now obviously, those three themes are basically staples of LEGO at this point. I don't think any of the three are going anywhere. Ninjago is better and bigger than ever, using a multi-year arc to tell one of the most complex stories they have ever told. The story is mature, the world building is amazing, all thanks to writers Kevin Burke and Chris Doc Wyatt, who came in and injected so much life and new lore into Ninjago, making it unravel a gigantic mystery over the course of 5+ years. Which is one of the coolest things the show has ever done. They even announced a live-action Ninjago movie in the works, being helmed by the Hageman brothers, who are the original writers for Ninjago, which is absolutely insane to me. That movie is either going to be like the worst thing imaginable or actually interesting, and there is no in between. And I am both excited and terrified for what it's going to look like. LEGO City is obviously just a vanilla staple. City has been doing its own different pieces of media here and there, and while City never was really that story-driven, I have to commend the latest LEGO City TV show, which is really just a collection of like 1-minute shorts on YouTube, but the animation quality of those shorts are incredible. Just look at how that looks. It almost looks like it's part of the LEGO movie. Photoreal animation that looks like stop action in a gigantic brick-built city where you can see every single brick is incredible. And I don't know why they don't do this style of animation for any other LEGO show. I mean, maybe because it would be so expensive and they literally can only afford 1-minute shorts. But City looks amazing. And even LEGO Friends has a pretty incredible TV show. I'm gonna admit I haven't seen all of it myself. I've seen a couple episodes here and there, but by and large, from what I've heard online, the LEGO Friends show is actually really good, and the animation quality is pretty incredible too. So altogether, those three bastions of LEGO are going strong, and that really sums up the current state of original LEGO themes. But we definitely are a far cry from years prior, where we had, basically every year, multiple different original themes. 10, 11, maybe even 12 original LEGO themes all running at the same time, introducing new ideas. So the big question is, what happened? And that brings us into part 2 of this video, the Big Bang strategy that LEGO employed. If you don't know what this is going to be a pretty quick section. Between the years of around 2011 to 2018, LEGO employed a quote-unquote Big Bang theme strategy. That meant they developed themes to specifically last 3 years. Oftentimes, these stories for these themes was developed to last over 3 years. They had specific character arcs in mind, they had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the theme was designed to be able to be wrapped up by the final 3rd year. And for a while, they pretty much did this same strategy, starting off with Ninjago. Ninjago started off as a Big Bang theme, a theme that had a TV show, a lot of budget dedicated to it, but was meant to wrap up in the 3rd year. Obviously, that wasn't the case for Ninjago. While it was designed to wrap up in 2013, with sets literally being marketed as the final battle, insane fan outcry made LEGO bring it back just 1 year later. It's actually crazy to me how quickly LEGO changed their minds about this after planning to end Ninjago in 2013 just because of the massive outcry of people saying, how could you end Ninjago, this is your biggest theme ever, and LEGO realizing that, yeah, maybe we're actually onto something here and we should continue it. I cannot think of another time that LEGO was convinced to keep something around by incredibly vocal fans. That is kind of unheard of, and it really goes to show just how big of a hit they had on their hands with Ninjago, and we'll talk a lot more about that in the 4th section. But beyond that, we had a lot more themes launch under this Big Bang strategy, each a little less successful than the last. Coming right off of Ninjago in 2013 was Legends of Chima. Chima, all things considered, actually did pretty well for LEGO. It had its full 3 years. It had a ton of sets, even closing out its final year with quite a few different sets. And while you could see that maybe by the end of the final wave the budget was starting to diminish, certain animals were reusing the same molded element, whereas in the past all the different animals had their own unique elements. Altogether, besides that, it was still going strong all 3 years, and thankfully Chima actually had their story conclude. Yes, they did have a much longer final season planned, where they actually were planning on doing an entire season focused on the quest for the Fire Wings, which they basically had to wrap up in 2 episodes, meaning that the end of the story was a little bit rushed, but all things considered, it actually did do pretty well for LEGO. It was financially successful, it had really interesting world building, but the thing about Chima was that the show was just simply not nearly as good as Ninjago. The voice acting was rough, to say the least. It was maybe some of the worst voice acting that we've ever seen from a LEGO show, and I don't really understand what was going on there. Like, some of those voice actors do work on Ninjago now, and they sound fine. So I don't know what was going on with Chima, but the voice acting was not good. The characters' voices kept cracking every few seconds, and I guess that was meant to show that they were like young teenagers, but it just made for a really annoying watch whenever Laval's voice cracked and Kraga's voice started cracking, and it was just not a fun viewing experience. They leaned super heavy into more slapstick comedy in Chima, with a skunk character, Skinnet, just having a fart joke every episode, and clearly it was geared towards a younger audience, but I definitely do feel that kids took it less seriously because of that. Ninjago, for what it's worth, always took itself very seriously. And I'm not saying Ninjago isn't meant for kids, because it obviously is, and I'm not saying it's not funny, because Ninjago is very funny, but the characters and lore and background and world were taken really, really seriously, to a degree that Chima wasn't really necessarily trying to hit. It still was trying to build this expansive world, and now the really funny thing is that Chima is linked to Ninjago. The worlds of Chima and Ninjago have merged canonically. If you aren't aware, yes, that is what's going on in the current plotline of Ninjago. And the writer of Ninjago is just randomly dropping like tidbits of Chima lore on his social media, which I find really funny how the theme has been long dead and still lives on. In fact, the latest season of Ninjago was almost fully set in the same world as Chima. It's kind of funny how things go full circle there. But altogether, Chima was an interesting experiment from LEGO because they put a lot of budget and funding and marketing behind it, and it did pretty good. Not as good as Ninjago, but still pretty good. So LEGO was like, this Big Bang strategy is working, let's do the next one, and the next one was LEGO Nexo Knights. Nexo Knights, unfortunately, never really hit the same highs as Ninjago, and never even hit the same highs as Chima. And here's the thing about Nexo Knights. You see, Nexo Knights was a world set in the fictional realm of Knighton, which was a high-tech blend of knights living in castles, but driving a rolling fortress tank, downloading electronic and digital codes onto their shields, which they could use as magical powers, and fighting against the evil Monstrox. And when they started off, Nexo Knights was actually a pretty interesting concept. You had these super high-tech, futuristic knights on hover shields and robot horses, battling against more traditional castle fantasy enemies, lava monsters to be specific, who didn't use any technology and were kind of summoned back from the past. It's a pretty cool concept and something they could have really ran with. The thing with Nexo Knights though is that unfortunately, the very core of the theme was set up for the story not to be taken that seriously. You see, the entire gimmick behind Nexo Knights was that LEGO was trying to integrate technology into their builds, and so they came up with these scannable Nexo powers in the form of shields, where on the TV show, you could watch the show, and here is how pretty much every episode of Nexo Knights went. The heroes are on the ropes. They are being beaten by the villains. All of a sudden, Murloc decides to allow you to scan a Nexo shield power into the Knight's technology, which was accompanied by a flashing warning tone, so you, while watching the episode, were given ample time to pull out your phone, open the app, and get ready to scan the shield. Then, when the shield appeared on screen, it literally lingered on there for like 20 seconds to allow you to have the time to scan it with your phone while you're playing the mobile game, which implies that you're supposed to be like playing a video game while watching this show, so you never really were supposed to be paying that much attention to begin with, and then of course, because they need to promote the app in the game and how powerful these Nexo powers were, immediately have the heroes defeat the villains in the last few minutes of the episodes after actually conquering them with the Nexo power. Because they promised to give viewers a new Nexo power every episode, they literally had to write each episode as the heroes almost losing, getting a Nexo power, and then completely evaporating the villains. This is not a fun show to watch. This is barely more than an advertisement. Like, I could watch a TV commercial and get the same exact plotline from that commercial. The heroes are being beaten. Oh no, what are we gonna do? Quick, download this Nexo power. Now you can command the Nexo Knights and save the day. You see, it's just a very simple plotline. And because of that, the show never got a chance to actually, have a plot. There was a very bare-bones plot, and sure, it had a little bit of lore, but most of the episodes were dedicated to parodies of old media that 99% of the target audience hadn't seen. There was an entire episode dedicated to a parody of Weekend at Bernie's, a film that came out in 1989. What kid watching that would understand what this was a reference to? In fact, let me just name some random LEGO Nexo Knights episodes. Heart of Stone, In His Majesty's Secret Service, The Good, the Bad, and the Tightwad, Weekend at the Halberds, Night at the Museum, Monster Chef, Open Mic Night, Stranger in the Helps. Yes, all of these episodes were parodies of some type of media, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, parody content is always very, very funny and good if done right, but I would argue it wasn't really executed right. Like, look at this guy. His entire shtick is that he's just the Big Lebowski. There's no punchline, there's nothing really layered about it, it's just the dude. There's nothing really interesting about that. To have a narrative-based LEGO show primarily be focused on parodies of other media, like there was a Western-focused episode, there was the James Bond episode where they just kept making fun of the James Bond infamous quotes. I'm not really sure what we're doing with the story here. There just wasn't really a cohesive flow to the story, and because of that, characterization was basically non-existent. There were no sorts of character development at all. There was one somewhat interesting arc where the main character Clay is slowly turned to stone and has an evil side overtake him, which actually was kind of interesting, but it was too little too late. By then, no kids were really tuning into Nexo Knights, the theme wasn't taking on, and because of that, they were winding it down. Worst of all, the show ended on a cliffhanger. That's right, the story of Nexo Knights is still unfinished and unresolved. And while Tommy Anderson, the creator of Nexo Knights Chima and Ninjago, has shared some brief bullet points as to how the story would end on his social media, they clearly were planning for the show to at least have one more season, and it just never actually happened. Nexo Knights is what many consider to be the last Big Bang original LEGO action theme, and it's pretty obvious to see why. It was the first time where a theme was doing so poorly that LEGO just had to retroactively pull it from shelves. They had more sets planned, they had a full arc for a final season, they had the story mapped out, but it was doing so poorly they decided to just stop making it, and people didn't even complain that much because nobody was watching the show, nobody really cared about where the story was going because it just wasn't being well received, and because of that, LEGO realized that they had to maybe sit back and rethink their Big Bang strategy. It was almost like they got lucky with Ninjago, and they couldn't just try to repeat the Ninjago formula for a different theme idea or a different concept because it's never going to do as good as Ninjago. Now some might say, oh well, it's because Ninjago was doing so good. Everyone's attention for original LEGO themes was focused on that, and I don't think that's the case. I think if there's anything that early years of LEGO proved is that multiple original LEGO themes can coexist at the same time and be as equally popular as each other. They just weren't hitting the mark. And why was that? Well, I would say that at least for Chima and Nexo Knights, a lot of it boiled down to story. And we'll be getting back to that in part 4. But now let's move on to part 3, where I want to dive in to more of a shift in the public perception of LEGO in general with the advent of the adult LEGO audience. Now what do I mean by this? In 2014, with the LEGO Movie, LEGO was kind of catapulted to much greater heights in the public scrutiny. Lots of people were finding out again about LEGO, adults were kind of rediscovering why they loved LEGO so much, and while LEGO was still very much a kids' company and very few AFOLs, especially compared to today, were their primary customers, the LEGO Movie allowed LEGO to be viewed in a much wider sphere in the world, and LEGO sets were flying off the shelves. This was the beginning of a new era for LEGO, where gearing more and more products towards adults became the norm for LEGO. But it wasn't until 2020 and of course the COVID global pandemic hit that a ton of people actually got into LEGO, especially from the adult fans. You see, 2020 is when LEGO launched LEGO Icons, and back then it was marketed as LEGO Adults Welcome or LEGO 18+. I think Icons is a much better name for it, but it was clearly a brand new exciting initiative for LEGO to jump into, where they started to realize that, wow, a lot of the people purchasing our sets are not adults buying things for kids. They're adults buying LEGO products for themselves. And not only are they AFOLs and diehard LEGO fans, which are altogether, while there are many of us, a pretty niche audience, but most importantly, they were normal people, everyday people who had maybe not touched LEGO since they were kids, or maybe never bought a LEGO set before, who were trying out LEGO for the first time and liking it as an adult hobby, a way to de-stress, a way to pass the time, a way to reconnect with their creative childlike spark. I actually gave a TEDx talk about this very subject, about how adults nowadays can get back into LEGO to rediscover their creative spark and passion. And if you want, I have that posted on YouTube, so feel free to check it out if you want to hear more about what I have to say about this topic. But just to kind of summarize everything about how LEGO's mindset has shifted here, a lot of what LEGO has decided to do since 2020 and going more and more into the future is drawing in a brand new target base. And that target base is, again, people who are rediscovering LEGO for the first time. And LEGO has developed a pretty smart strategy to loop in these brand new buyers. The most obvious one is developing a set based on a recognizable IP that might have been popular when they were younger, or even a more adult IP that they might watch today or be big fans of, and get people to tune into LEGO because of that. Basically, having the set act as a gateway drug for getting into LEGO. And that's why the amount of different LEGO licenses has kind of exploded in recent years. Maybe somebody who's a big fan of the Friends TV show, or The Office, or even Seinfeld might not care about LEGO at all, but if they're big fans of the show, they might say, yeah, I might get a LEGO set based on that, and then, if they enjoy the experience enough, they might start buying more and more. Alternatively, LEGO also has just a lot of generic icon sets in general, sets that are meant to depict things that might look nice on a shelf or hung up on your wall, or might be a good gift and activity for you to give someone. LEGO Art is a big example of this, where you can buy recreations of modern artwork, or buy an original piece of LEGO artwork that looks really good and pleasing on display. And then you can hang it up on your wall, and even if you aren't a fan of LEGO, it's still pretty cool to be able to say like, hey yeah, by the way, that piece of art on my wall, it's built out of LEGO. And then you just get your own organic impressions from people sharing it with their friends on social media, on literally just home visits and friends visiting friends and seeing a cool piece of art on the shelf. That is a big plus. But the biggest thing for LEGO that came out of Icons that now as of 2025 is its own LEGO theme, which I guess kind of counts as an original LEGO theme even though it's very non-traditional, is LEGO Botanicals. Botanicals are an amazing gift because you can build a LEGO flower set and give it to someone you love, a significant other, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or your parents, or your aunts or uncles or grandmas. Really, it is just a solid gift to give anyone. And they also just look really nice on display. They're the type of flowers that never die, that never go away, and they're much more interesting than just regular plastic flowers because you actually have to build them, and they're chock full of interesting pieces and building techniques that literally are called out in the instructions, as if the instructions are made for someone who has never touched a LEGO set before. Like in the most recent Flower Bouquet, it specifically calls out that, hey, these pieces you're using are LEGO shields, or this piece you're using is a pirate hat, or this piece is a minifigure crown element, and so on and so forth. And clearly these sets are designed for people to test out LEGO. Speaking from experience, building a LEGO set makes for an amazing date night activity, and I've given LEGO Botanicals to almost every one of my friends who has never touched LEGO before. It's a really good gateway into LEGO, and now these people are now going out and buying more LEGO sets for themselves and for their friends, and because of that, LEGO has kind of taken on a new life, as not just a kid's toy, but as an actual adult hobby that you can pick up. Anybody can build a LEGO set and follow the instructions, and it's something interesting and fun to do with your hands, which is really cool, and I actually think that is a very nice part of LEGO. How they are introducing more adults into LEGO, it's more socially acceptable to be an adult who's into LEGO. My boss at work is a big LEGO fan, and I know you watch some of my videos as well, so thank you for watching, man. But that's the thing, it's people who would never be into LEGO otherwise are starting to get into it. And because of this, LEGO is admittedly more popular than ever. LEGO feels more powerful as a brand than they ever were before. It's not just a kid's toy now, it absolutely is an adult hobby item. But here's the thing. A good number of these adults who are getting back into LEGO, who are maybe even discovering it or rediscovering it, maybe played with LEGO as a kid and maybe were drawn into it. The reason why LEGO as a brand was able to build themselves up to this point is because of the strength of what came before, and those were their original LEGO themes. I'm really curious that in 20 years from now, what is LEGO going to look like, especially if they de-emphasize original themes and focus more on adult offerings or focus more on licensed themes. But I guess as long as child-friendly licenses are around, and as long as LEGO continues to make stuff for kids, which they do continue to do, people will be into LEGO. Maybe just not for the same reasons that I'm into LEGO, or someone older than me might be into LEGO. That being said though, what is the most important reason as to why, for the most part, a lot of these licensed themes are successful, and non-licensed themes as well, and that really does boil down to storytelling. And that is point number 4. Now, I considered titling this video LEGO is a storytelling company, not a toy company, and I felt like that title might be a little confusing, so I decided to go with the more basic why are original themes dying, or whatever the title is that you're reading right now and what made you click on this video. But I do feel like this is truly the crux and the most important point of what I have to say here. LEGO is the most successful when they are making a product that is based off of a story. This is not always true, but it is often true. Obviously, LEGO themes that encourage you to tell your own stories and LEGO themes that kind of just mimic real-life objects that look nice are a big part of the brand. LEGO City barely has a story, and yet is always one of LEGO's most popular themes because kids love to recreate the world around them. As I just said, LEGO Botanicals, there's no story behind that, but they're really nice, aesthetically pleasing objects that make great gifts for adults. But by and large, the most successful LEGO themes are either tied around a popular IP that is popular because of the story, or are tied around an original LEGO story that really took off. And especially when it comes to original story-based action and adventure themes, the only ones that have been remotely successful have been the ones with actual good stories. Let's take a look back where it all began with original LEGO story-based themes, and it really has to start with Bionicle. Of course, LEGO was making their own original themes back then, but none of them really had clearly defined stories. Adventurers had very loose comics of Johnny Thunder exploring different parts of the world, LEGO Space introduced new factions here and there, and sometimes commercials would cross over Space and Castle, or give a hint as to what the story is supposed to be through the play patterns like with Space Police and Blacktron, but there never was a single overarching lore and story behind a LEGO theme until Bionicle. Now, Bionicle came at a very strange part of LEGO's history. The early 2000s were not a good time for LEGO. In fact, they were very close to bankruptcy, so much so that they almost considered selling the company to another toy giant out there, like Hasbro or Mattel, and can you imagine what kind of world we'd be living in today if LEGO was just another sub-brand of those brands? However, LEGO was able to right the ship because of two very important themes: Star Wars and Bionicle. And if you think about it, what did those two themes have in common? Well, they both were based around some pretty incredible, long-lasting stories. People loved LEGO Star Wars, maybe because, yeah, the ships are awesome and the minifigures are cool and the locations are interesting, But first and foremost, people bought LEGO Star Wars sets because of the Star Wars movies, because of the love for the IP, because they fell in love with the universe. The same goes for Bionicle. Yes, Bionicle was an amazing product. The products were so cool, and I meet a lot of Bionicle fans even today who say they didn't know about the story at all and literally just bought them because the products were cool. And that is very valid, and I totally can see that. But by and large, most of the people getting into Bionicle, and especially most of the people who are still Bionicle fans today, got into it because of the story. And thus begins an almost accidental success history of LEGO just kind of accidentally striking big against all of their efforts on some of their most popular original stories that just almost took on a life of their own because of these stories. Let's take a look back to the beginning launch of Bionicle in 2001. LEGO had basically had a very ambitious plan for Bionicle that was slowly pared down more and more as they began to lose faith as to whether or not they really should be putting this much money into such an out there and wild concept of an action figure based theme. Initially, the main story of Bionicle was supposed to be told through a game, focused around the 6 main Toa heroes as they explored around Mata Nui and interacted with the villagers and eventually defeated Makuta for the very first time. Here's the thing though. About halfway through the game's development, LEGO pulled the plug. Sets were already being released, advertising the game itself, but LEGO kinda lost faith in it. It was becoming too expensive to make a game based off of this that told the story, and they just decided, you know what, it's not worth it. Let's just have Bionicle come out, maybe last a year, 2 years tops, and call it good. That was the plan. But because of that, LEGO had built the entire storytelling of the first year as fragmented segments that were all made to support this game. Number one of which was the Mata Nui online game, which quickly became pretty much the main source of information for being able to understand the story of year one, aside from a few books and comics here and there. Now, the way that the Mata Nui online game built was almost accidentally genius. Because they didn't want to step on the toes of the main console game they were releasing, focusing on the main characters and the heroes of the story, the Mata Nui online game instead focused on a day in the life of a villager, who is basically almost a passerby in the main Bionicle story. Sure, they were involved to some degree and get to witness a lot of the events, but they're not the ones fighting the villains. They barely have any impact on the story itself. It mainly was meant for you to immerse yourself in the world of Mata Nui, interacting with villagers, having conversations with them, piecing together who these mysterious heroes were that showed up and seemed to have a very focused mission, talking to some of the elders of the village who were just as mysterious, if not more, and eventually witnessing the climax of the final battle of the Toa through somebody else's eyes. That was a really interesting concept, and again, it was almost by accident. The game was literally made to focus on the random side character villagers to not step on the toes of the main game that was supposed to be the main part of the story, but instead, by telling the story through the eyes of a lowly villager who was witnessing these almost godlike beings descend upon their island and perform these miraculous feats, made the world of Bionicle so much more interesting and unique. There was a huge mystery to unravel throughout the course of the Mata Nui online game. Where did these heroes come from? What is their purpose? How did we end up on this island? Why are all these robots and biomechanical creatures living on an island full of lush paradise? The core mystery of Bionicle was told through the Mata Nui online game, and that game is what made many people, including myself, fall in love with the world of Bionicle. Most Bionicle fans nowadays will tell you they fell in love with Bionicle because of this game. And sure, I'm not speaking for everyone, and a good amount of people fell in love with the theme because of the toys, or because of the cool commercials on TV, or because of the movies they did in the later run, but a lot of the OG fans fell in love with it because of this. And the crazy thing is, it was an accident. LEGO didn't even mean to put this game out. In fact, they tried to pull the plug on the game halfway through as well, until the developers, Templar Studios, said, no, we have a banger on our hands, we're just gonna self-finance and continue making this. And LEGO said, okay, go for it if you're paying for it. And the final half of the game was literally finished because some Templar Studios employees decided to finish it up. Obviously, when the game hit LEGO.com and LEGO saw the potential behind it, then they continued to make it more of a thing and support it with a campaign. But before that, it was kind of its own thing. LEGO kind of saw it as the ugly stepchild of the Bionicle media campaign, where who would really care about some random point-and-click flash adventure game, which quickly became the crux of the entire mystery behind the theme, and what drove so many people to fall in love with the story. Ninjago is almost a similar case. LEGO was looking to promote one of their themes on Cartoon Network, similar to how they put out some specials for LEGO Atlantis the year prior, and so they decided on some relatively unknown writers at the time, the Hageman brothers, who honestly didn't have that many credits to their name, to just create a 45-minute special around the concept behind Ninjago, with maybe a hint that it could be expanded to more if there was enough demand. Well, the Hageman brothers kinda cooked, and this was kinda the start of their career when it comes to making a big production. They would soon go on to produce some incredibly big shows and hits like Troll Hunters or the Star Trek show, and now of course they're being courted back to do the Ninjago live-action movie. But back in 2011, LEGO took a chance on some random writers that they had found, and they just made the story incredibly interesting and just added a lot of hooks to the characters to start off at certain points, making you invested in each and every one of the main ninja. That is no small feat, and if you look at some of the other LEGO original themes, Hidden Side, Chima, Nexo Knights, all of them have protagonists and main characters that honestly are not that interesting. LEGO almost accidentally struck gold with the Ninjago storyline, and it's because of the strength of the Ninjago storyline that Ninjago is still around today. As much as the products are great and a lot of fun to play with, I'm gonna be honest, for a long period of Ninjago's run, the products were just fine. Like, they were fun, don't get me wrong, they were cool to play with, but honestly, it ended up feeling a little repetitive. We would get a ton of motorcycles or mechs that all kind of looked similar, and maybe here and there we would get more sets dedicated towards the villains, which tried their own thing, whether it be ghosts or steampunk pirates, but by and large, Ninjago was the kind of theme that you had to love it because of the story. Whereas I do find a lot of Bionicle fans who got into Bionicle because the toys were cool, almost every single person who collects Ninjago is in it because of the amazing television show. Sure, some of that has changed a little bit with Ninjago putting out more and more sets that are actually adult focused, like the amazing Ninjago City sets, which anybody who loves cyberpunk and that aesthetic can love, or even some stuff like the Dragonstone Shrine, which is just a really nice build by itself. Those are all recent things. Ninjago mostly just sustained itself because people loved the show. And that gets me back to the main point of this video. The thing is, kids, and most importantly just general fans of LEGO, they're not necessarily asking LEGO to make less non-licensed themes and more licensed themes. They're asking LEGO to make products based on good stories. If the story is good, then people want it to be made. Just look at the massive demand for LEGO Avatar: The Last Airbender, something I'm shocked they haven't revisited, and I'm sure they're probably going to revisit by the time Season 2 comes out. Again, I have no inside information here, I'm just guessing based on the insane fan demand for something like that. But if you look at the popularity of LEGO licensed themes, Harry Potter, kids love the story, kids love the houses and the world building and the movies, and that's why they love LEGO Harry Potter. Star Wars, obviously very story driven. Marvel and DC, look at why we get so much more Marvel sets compared to DC sets nowadays. It's because kids prefer the MCU. MCU movies, I mean, maybe not recently, but at least in the past, have done a lot better than DC movies, and so LEGO is basically pushed in the direction of making sets based on what sells well, aka these sets based off of movies that kids like and adults love the stories of. And if you look at Ninjago, the one thing that's been more or less pretty consistent about Ninjago is the story has always been pretty good. Even the worst Ninjago season, Season 7, Hands of Time, Fight Me, it is absolutely garbage, has something interesting to offer when it comes to Ninjago's lore and ancient history. And the minifig designs are pretty cool, especially because the villains were rejected concepts for an early draft of the LEGO Ninjago movie, meaning they had even more development effort put into them than normal. Even the most boring and the worst Ninjago seasons are still pretty fun to watch. Like, Prime Empire is an example of a recent Ninjago season that kinda doesn't really provide anything. Like, the story's pretty bland, it's not that interesting, the heroes don't really progress or have any character development outside of the, final 2 episodes. Even a season like that, which is among my least favorite seasons, still has something good to offer when it comes to the story. Whether it be a dramatic reunion of Lloyd and a digital recreation of Harumi, leading in one of the best Ninjago fights ever, or just a really interesting world to explore and new concepts for Ninjago to cover in a video game world, there's always something interesting going on with the story, and I really appreciate that about Ninjago, how the story is consistently pretty good, because they consistently hire pretty good writers. But again, it was almost by mistake, and LEGO obviously doesn't necessarily go into making something saying, oh, we're gonna hire bad writers for this. Like, they're always trying to make the stories good, but I do think LEGO could try a little bit harder to hire writers who have a good proven track record. They got lucky with the Hagenman brothers, who didn't really have a track record before Ninjago but just happened to be good, but so far, for a lot of their modern themes, Chima, Nexo Knights, Hidden Side, especially now Dreams, looking at the quality of the Dreams show compared to Ninjago, it all comes down to the writing being good or bad. And you can hire good children's television writers, but I think that LEGO needs to then change their mindset here. LEGO is in their mindset that they are a product company. And someone watching this video might say, well, duh, that's obvious. You're buying plastic blocks. Like, yeah, LEGO's a product company. I would actually disagree. I think LEGO, first and foremost, is most successful when they're a storytelling company. Whether they are making products and profits off of the stories of others with licensed themes, or telling their own stories, the most successful LEGO products are backed by incredibly popular stories, for the most part. Maybe a couple of icon sets here and there break that mold, but 99.9% of the time, people are buying LEGO sets because the story behind them is really interesting and really good, and people connect to LEGO sets because of that. It's why Bionicle did so good, because the story and the lore was so complex. It's why Ninjago still does so good today, because the story is so interesting and they're telling a longer form arc. It's why other original LEGO themes, like Dreams, have stumbled because the story isn't that good. It just boils down to telling a good story. And I think that is the crux of LEGO. And so, I just want to wrap up this video by taking a step back and looking at some of the original LEGO themes that they're working on and saying, what is happening? Are original LEGO themes dying? Well, if you look at the numbers, they kind of are. Back in 2000, we had 10 to 11 original themes, and this held strong until around 2015 when we had 12 original themes on shelves at the same time. But by 2020, that number began to go down a lot, going down to 6, and now we have 5 left in 2025, and by the end of the year, we might be down to 3. I am really curious to see what LEGO is cooking. I am sure they already have another original theme ready to go. It is almost impossible for LEGO to stop making original themes. But I have to say, I do miss the days when LEGO was just a little bit more experimental with their original themes. Back in the early 2010s and even before that, with Power Miners, Atlantis, Space Police, Pharaoh's Quest, this was a golden era of LEGO original themes where they would try something interesting for a year, maybe continue it for a second wave or even a second year, and then just call it good. But it provided something new and an original concept. Nowadays, when LEGO has an original concept, it seems like they kind of just throw it into Ninjago, for better or for worse. If you want to make a theme about ghosts and hunting ghosts, Ninjago. A theme about steampunk pirates that fly through the skies, Ninjago. A theme about going into a video game world, Ninjago. And, well, I guess LEGO Dreams 2025 now focused on video gaming. But you get the point. LEGO now has a lot of these sub-themes within themes. Ninjago had a whole season set underwater, or on a tropical island, or in a D&D-esque Skull Sorcerer's dungeon underneath the earth. All of these could have been their own original LEGO themes, but LEGO seems to have lost confidence in doing that. Unless a theme is a huge, gigantic hit for LEGO, it's not worth them putting the effort into developing it. And if they have a cool idea for an original theme, well, it's gonna sell well for Ninjago because Ninjago always sells well, so put it into that, is their current mentality. But they seem to fail to realize that Ninjago sells well, yes, because of the brand name, but the brand name sells well because the story has consistently been very good. Right from the get-go, the Ninjago TV show is incredibly pleasing and fun to watch and incredibly engaging. They just need to do that for one of their other original themes, and the profits will be there. And of course, it's not for the lack of trying. They are trying with LEGO Dreams. They obviously put a lot of effort and emphasis into the show. They just could have put a little bit more emphasis into the writing, because the writing just isn't quite good. And then Monkey Kid is maybe the most tragic of all, because LEGO did everything right with Monkey Kid. The show is amazing, the voice acting is incredible, the animation is stellar, the sets started off amazing. They just chose to not market it outside of Asia, because it never was meant to be outside of Asia, meaning that from year one, the theme was basically set up to fail in every other region other than Asia, and they cannot support a theme just because of one particular region. They need more than that. And so, 2025 is set to be a very interesting year for LEGO, and I'm sure this time next year, we might be talking about a brand new original LEGO theme. I can't say much, but I have heard some rumblings of LEGO actually developing some new themes and new concepts, and obviously, I don't really know much myself, but I'm sure that's coming. It doesn't take a genius to sit here and speculate and say, LEGO probably has the next big original theme plan to come out after Dreams. What it is anyone's guess, but I really just hope that LEGO learns some of the lessons that they have been learning from their most recent original themes. Number one, storytelling is key. To make a good product, you have to make a good story. To sell products, you have to make a good story. To create a popular IP, you have to make, guess what, a good story. Oh, and number two, you have to market that story. Don't just give up on marketing it outside of one region like Monkey Kid, where you had a slam dunk hit on your hands but just chose not to market it, and look where we are today. A few years later, and Monkey Kid is on its way out seemingly because they just didn't market it, and that is very, very sad. You have to market it, but you have to put effort into the story, and that's the most important thing. Obviously, all of this is easier said than done. I can sit here and talk all day about how LEGO should just make a good show. Come on, just hire good writers. Just make the show interesting and good. Obviously, I do not want to downplay the amount of effort, talent, and skill that goes into that. It takes some incredibly talented writers and world builders and character developers to make something like Ninjago, to make something like Monkey Kid, to make something like The Avengers, to make something like Star Wars, to make something like Avatar. You know, it takes talented storytellers to do that. But I do think that LEGO is at an inflection point in the company's history right now where if they don't invest in talented storytellers, and if they keep going down the route of focusing on adult-oriented sets and drawing in new adult fans based on recognizable IP, they are to some extent missing out on what made LEGO so great to begin with. I realize now that I guess the end result of this video is kind of saying we have to make LEGO great again, but I'm not even lying. I genuinely do think that LEGO used to emphasize storytelling, and especially original storytelling, as part of what they were building, and I don't know if that is the primary focus today. They are resting on their laurels with Ninjago. They've hired great writers, and they are just letting them cook on Ninjago. But are they continuing to hire great writers for their original themes? And most importantly, are they marketing it if those themes are good? And the answer is not really. Either they have a theme that doesn't have great writing but is pushed and marketed a lot, or they have a theme that has amazing writing but isn't marketed as nearly as much as it should be. So altogether, I hope LEGO will sit back and rethink on what made Ninjago so successful and what makes all of their themes so successful. And the answer is good stories. That's all I have to say for this video before I keep on repeating myself, but of course this has been just my opinion. So do let me know, what do you think about what I had to say in this video? Do you agree with me that storytelling is the most important thing when it comes to selling a LEGO theme? And what sorts of things would you want to see LEGO cover in a new original theme? For me personally, I would love to see an action-adventure theme based around LEGO space, especially because that's a pretty different thing from Ninjago. Doesn't seem like Ninjago's gonna touch space anytime soon or again, so that would be super cool to have like a sci-fi LEGO theme, or even something more fantasy oriented. I would love to see like a medieval LEGO theme that might be focused on like pirates in a fantasy setting. That could be really cool, and we haven't seen pirates in a while. Or even combine castle and pirates and make it some sort of an interesting fantasy world. Dreams is pretty out there as a concept, and maybe another reason as to why it hasn't found its footing is that Dreams doesn't really have a strong visual identity. These sets are made to appeal to everyone, and as such, they kind of appeal to no one. In the most recent Ocean Wave, the sets appeal to gamers, or animal lovers, or cute animal lovers, or hot rod enthusiasts, and they don't really have a lane that they stick to. It almost feels like the LEGO Movie 2, where sets are marketed towards so many different genres and so many different individuals. But I do feel that LEGO refocusing a theme on one interesting core concept, like power miners, underground miners, Atlantis, deep sea divers fighting mutant sea creatures, or something else along those lines, could be just the key to success when it comes to crafting the next original theme after Dreams. I guess we have to wait until 2026 to see that, but until then, I certainly will be avidly watching anything original LEGO puts out. I'm very curious to see if Monkey Kid will get its final season, if Dreams will even have a season 3 this year. Super curious to see when those pieces of media are coming out, and as always, I will be covering Ninjago because the story of Ninjago is genuinely really good, and if you stepped away from Ninjago or have been taking a break, now is the right time to get back into it. Start with Dragons Rising Season 1 on Netflix. It's a good soft reboot for the theme, and you will not be disappointed. This show rocks. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Bye for now.